of Valor. And I'd like to introduce Connie and Jim Fiedler, who will make this presentation. And I'd like to ask Jim Kishbaugh to come up. He doesn't want to come up.
Thank you for inviting us here today. My name is Bonnie Fiedler. This is my husband, Jim. We're members of the Columbia County Quilts of Valor. We represent about 9,000 sewers and quilters across this country who are working at making as many quilts as possible for both veterans and current service members. Today, we are deeply grateful to be able to honor James Kishbaugh with his own Quilt of Valor.
The Quilts of Valor Foundation is a national organization. It was founded in 2003 by a Blue Star mother named Catherine Roberts. And for younger people in here, Blue Stars were sewn onto flags and hung in windows of people's homes who had a family member off serving in the military. Particularly, it was true during World War I, World War II, probably during Korea also. The people flew these flags. And so, often by mothers, and they were known as Blue Star mothers. Catherine Roberts was a Blue Star mother because she had a son who was going to go off to Iraq in 2003 as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And she was worried about what may happen to him. She worked down at Walter Reed Hospital, and she saw a lot of people coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, suffering from combat wounds, post-traumatic stress disorder. They were suffering, and again, she was worried about her son. She wanted to do something. She didn't know what, and one night she had a dream. And in that dream, she saw a soldier who was suffering. A quilt was wrapped around his shoulders, a hug given to him. It seemed to bring a great deal of comfort to him. So she took that idea and recruited friends who were sewers and quilters, and they formed the Quilts of Valor Foundation. And the original mission was to award a quilt to people who were wounded in combat or suffering from PTSD from the global war on terror. But then as it spread, the idea was to award a quilt to all who served. So the purpose was originally just for that small group, but now it's meant to comfort veterans and honor and thank all of them, and current service members as well, by awarding them a quilt because all who serve are worthy. We presented many quilts. I've talked to hundreds of veterans, talked to Mr. Kishbaugh here. You have a lot of differences in your service. You serve different branches. Some were stateside, some overseas after training, some were in combat, some away from the battlefield, some doing other things in other parts of the world, doing different jobs, and lots of differences. But you all have the same things that you share. Every veteran I've talked to had the same thing. You left home, you left family, you left friends, you swore an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States. You went where the military told you to go to do a job they told you to do. And that makes all veterans and current service members worthy of the Quilt of Valor. So at this point, we talk a little bit about service. So Mr. Kishbaugh, we're honored to speak to you and humbled to stand before you who have served our country, performed your duty, and helped in the fight for the freedoms we enjoy today. We're eternally grateful to you. So I'm sure some of you know something about his history, but for those of you who don't, he enlisted in the Army in November of 1949. He was 19 and went to basic training in tank school at Fort Knox, Kentucky. And from there he went to California and the Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, joining the 5th Regimental Combat Team. And the 5th had been in Korea, but in 1949 it was recalled because nobody was expecting a North Korean attack. And so it was recalled back to Hawaii. And the 5th Regimental Combat Team was made up of 5th Infantry Regiment and various units to support it. You had artillery, you had tank company, which you belong to, various other organizations were part of it, sort of like a mini division in a sense. And when he first was assigned to tanks, he was the loader in the tank, and eventually became a driver in a 5-man crew in a Sherman tank. And to steer the tank as a driver, you had levers that you pushed and pulled to make the tank turn or go straight. And he said he didn't have too much trouble with that because he'd been driving bulldozers and other things and knew something similar. He said the difficulty was that when you had the hatch covered, you couldn't see, so you had to use a periscope. So trying to drive the tank using a periscope like submarine map, that was a little bit more of a challenge. I think he used to doing that. But you didn't want to be exposed to enemy fire, so you had to keep the hatch buttoned up. In late June 1950, the North Koreans attacked across the 38th parallel and pushed the South Koreans and the United Nations forces, including those U.S. troops still in Korea, down to the bottom of the peninsula, down to the port of Busan, where they made a stand and stopped the advance. And then late July 1950, his unit, 5th Regimental Combat Team, was loaded on ships and sent back to Korea. And it was one of the first Americans to arrive and was soon in combat, trying to protect the Busan perimeter, as it was known. And without units like his, and men like him, it's quite possible South Korea, as a country, would not exist today because of the stand that they made. In September, his unit got attached to a larger group, the 24th Infantry Division, and they broke out of the Busan perimeter. And he said a lot of the tank company's job was probing ahead, supporting the infantry. And he was talking about one battle where they were shelling the enemy up on a hill. The infantry unit up there was under attack. And during the battle, he happened to run into a friend. They had enlisted together and gone through basic together, but that person was out in the infantry unit. He met his friend when he came down from the hill, having been somewhat wounded in the fight up on the hill. He fought all over Korea, helped push the North Korean army back out of South Korea, drove them all the way up to the Yalu River, which was North Korea's border with China. And the Chinese then entered the war in November 1950, pushed the units back. And he fought in Korea for a year, except he had 1 week of R&R in Japan, just a rest and relaxation. And after a year, returned to Fort Knox and became a tank crew instructor and left the Army in May of 1952 as a sergeant. And on your bulletin board out here in the top of the stairs, there's a picture of his tank, and it's painted up like a tiger. And according to the caption out there, it's because the Chinese believed tigers were sacred, so there was a hope that they wouldn't shoot at tanks. But it didn't work. Chinese weren't quite that superstitious. But if you look at the picture out there, he'll be the one on, as you're looking at the picture, on the front right with his head sticking up out of the hatch. And so, Mr. Kishbaugh, the Quilt of Valor you'll be receiving here in just a minute unequivocally says thank you for all of your service, your sacrifice, and your valor in serving your nation. Bonnie will tell you about your quilt.
As I said earlier, thousands of sewers and quilters work daily at making as many quilts as possible, and as of today, more than 210,000 quilts of valor have been awarded both here in this country and abroad at our military bases. Quilts of valor are awarded, they're not just handed out, and that's why we are here today. A quilt of valor is not a charity quilt, and it's not just any old blanket. If you know anything about quilts, it takes 3 layers to make a quilt. And Catherine Roberts, who started this whole thing, said each of those layers is important. The top layer represents the communities and the individuals who have contributed to it. And the filler, or batting, is meant to bring warmth, comfort, peace, and healing. The backing is a strength that supports the other layers, as you, Mr. Kishbaugh, are evidently supported by your family, your friends, your community, and your nation. Each stitch that holds those layers together represents love and gratitude. Our quilts are formed by loving hands that join together bits of fabric one piece at a time. They may be fashioned by 1 or 2 individuals, or they may come about through the combined efforts of many men and women of all skill levels. Our quilts are all different. The sewers use different patterns and different fabrics when they piece the tops together, and the quilters who use their long arm quilting machines use different designs when they do the quilting. But no matter the pattern, no matter the fabrics, no matter the stitch design, what is the same with all of the quilts is the love, care, and gratitude that flow from our hearts through our hands into the quilts we make. And all of us, as members of the Columbia County Quilts of Valor, want you to know that through this quilt you are gratefully remembered. For those of us who have never served, or seen combat, or been in a war zone, such experiences are beyond our capacity to comprehend. But we believe that the quilt that is awarded to you today has the ability to offer comfort, healing, and warmth. We hope that if you experience any dark times or just need the warmth of a grateful hug, you will wrap your quilt around you so that it can provide you the comfort that has been sewn into every inch and feel the expression of gratitude from those who have worked to create it for you. I didn't ask you ahead of time, Mr. Kishbaugh, but if you heard Jim say, Catherine Roberts, who started this whole thing, wanted each veteran to be wrapped with a quilt and given a hug. Will that be okay with you? Okay. The hug will come not only from me, perhaps from some other people who are here, but also from every member of the Quilts of Valor family, and remember that there are about 9,000 of us. Each quilt comes with a presentation case that looks like a pillowcase, in which you can store your quilt when you're not using it. It also comes with a certificate from the Quilts of Valor Foundation. It has the Quilts of Valor Foundation logo, your name as you wished it, James E. Kishbaugh, United States Army, 1949 to 1952, Korea. The Quilts of Valor Foundation wishes to recognize you for your service to our nation. We consider it a privilege to honor you, though we may never know the extent of your sacrifice and service to protect and defend the United States of America. As an expression of gratitude, we award you this Quilt of Valor, 27th day of January, 2019 at Nescopec, PA. It's signed by Ann Rabine, the Executive Director for the Quilts of Valor Foundation, and myself as a group leader for the Columbia County Quilts of Valor. In addition to the pillowcase and the certificate, you also get something special. The person who quilted your quilt always includes a personal note. I won't read this exactly to everybody there. This will be for you to take later so you can read. But she quilts because both of her parents served in the Army in World War II. They met while they were in the Army in the Philippines. Her father later went on and fought in Korea. So you have a personal note from her. Also, the top of your quilt has a label. To be a Quilt of Valor, it has to say that it's a Quilt of Valor. It has to say that it's a Quilt of Valor. It has to give the year, your name, branch of service, and deployment. It was pieced by Dorothy Krause, who lives in Berwick, and the quilter who had that personal note is Jerry Cirola of Ohio. So this went from here to Ohio and back. And it also must include washing instructions. So it says, wash in cold water and tumble dry low. That's important. Soon you'll see your quilt. As of today, the story of this quilt becomes your story. We hope that you will keep this Quilt of Valor as a tangible reminder of the thousands of men and women across this country who are forever in your debt. And it is our pleasure to honor you with it. So that being said, it's our honor today to award this quilt to James Kishbaugh. On behalf of the Quilts of Valor Foundation, those of us here today, and a grateful nation, with our deepest appreciation, we thank you for your service and your commitment to our country.
before I do that, I'm going to be the next one to hug him. All right, let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, I have to say thank you so much for this wonderful person who is a dear friend and also a fellow veteran. Father, I pray for all veterans, as I always do. There's so many of them that aren't able to sit here today for the loss, and I pray for their families. But Jim especially, you had a special reason for him to bring him here to us as a good friend, as a fellow church person, and a wonderful wife that he has. I pray, Father, you will continue on to wrap your blanket around him, your blanket of love and blessings, and that he will continue to do the things he enjoys to do and makes everyone laugh. I ask this in my wonderful God's name, in Jesus'